Christi community since 2021. And since we started, desalination has been one of those issues, top priority issues, that we have found has really impacted the community. And when we first started here, there were still a lot of people who were like, desal, what's desal? Why are y'all against desal? Don't we need that for our cars? And they thought it was diesel. So it's taken a lot of work for us to get here. But you know, just as we've seen, like on our newspaper, not newspapers, but like on social media, when people have been commenting, there was like barely any comments on there. And then now if you go to any of the social media posts that like any of the local media outlets, yeah, like, you know, will post, you have a lot of people commenting now. They're concerned about desalination. They're concerned about the rising water rates. They're concerned about the quality of our bay and you know, just our ecosystem dying, and they know that this water is not for us. So we had a minor pause. Back in September, the Corpus Christi City Council voted to pause the Inner Harbor, or what we call it, the Hillcrest desalination site, because it is going to be located in the Hillcrest neighborhood. And they're selling everybody on this like beautiful vision of how it's going to help our community. It's going to provide water for us. It's going to be this enclosed area. They have a school bus parked in the front of it. Like, it's going to be a great place for our kids to go and have their field trips, when we know that that is not the truth. The truth is that it's going to impact our community, and it's going to impact our residents, our neighbors in the Hillcrest community most of all, because this is a massive project. It's going to require multiple trucks to go and dispose that organic waste, and they're also going to need a substation, because another thing about these desalination plants that they're not letting the people know is how energy intensive they are. So not only do they impact our water quality, our communities, our bays, our, you know, the landfills and everything, they also take a lot of energy. So this is our last town hall for the year. Like I said, we thought we had a little bit more time to breathe, but because of the state, like having the city manager say, hey, if y'all don't do this, the state's gonna come in and do this desal project. Industry saying, we need this water that y'all promised us. So now our city council has somewhat folded, or at least like put in some extra requests, you know, for far field modeling to be done, for all these studies to be done before they get final approval. So what we need is to get our community members more involved, more informed, and, you know, so that we can fight back against this really terrible project that is not going to go away until they pull the permits and we force our city council to make the right decision on this. So tonight we'll be talking a little bit about this. One of those demands that the council members made was to have some far field modeling done. So Jason Hale's going to be presenting on that. And then we have Mr. Albert Zapuche with Team Hardline Fishing to talk about the concerns that the fishing community has with this project. So, I don't have the clicker. Yeah, there we go. Go through the screens here. So if you haven't checked in the back, there's a QR code, and you can do a quick introduction. You know, introduce yourselves and like what brought you out here today. What is it about this project that interests you or concerns you? So you can share that. Probably we'll leave that till, you know, when we're in our roundtables. So we have our welcome and introduction, update on our water projects, and then we're going to have some Q&A and some call to action. A lot of times, like, we have a lot of people who have ideas on how to get the word out more. So like, we are at the end of the year, and this gives us an opportunity for 2026 on how we could get more people informed, get the messaging out there, because as I mentioned, this is one project, but there are 4 other projects slated for the area. And it's not just here in our community. The state has an idea of getting these in Freeport, in Beaumont, in the RGV. They want desalination plants all along the Texas coast because they're bringing in data centers. They're bringing in more fracking. They're bringing in all of these things that aren't going to help us. They're going to harm us. And this is something that we all need to be like keeping an eye out on. So our next slide, I kind of went over a little bit on who Chisto, Texas is. If y'all aren't familiar with us, get with me. I'll share more info, and we can get you more involved on that. So we have a water quiz here. It's always good to know our water quizzes. So I'll turn it over to Diana again, Tom, so that you can go and our water quiz with folks.
Yeah.
Always a little.
Hey everybody, my name is Diana Tong. I am a Houston-based organizer, and I am supporting Chisto with our local organizing work here in the Coastal Bend. Thanks to all the people in this room who have helped to elevate a lot of these facts, like Jason, like Eli through the Coastal Action Network. We are continuing to kind of lift up the reality of what is going on with water in our region. So this is just a little fun exercise to get us started. I know some of you may have seen some of these before, but I'll read this out loud if you're not able to see. So in 2024, how many gallons of water a day did Corpus Christi water supply to the region? Do you all think it's A, 50 million, B, 80 million, C, 110 million, or D, 200 million? Feel free to shout out what you social media posts. The answer is 110 million gallons of water a day is what was Corpus Christi water supplied. That includes residential use, small business use, and industry use. So then the question is, what percent of our current water is being used by industry versus residential and kind of small business use? Do you think that's A, 30 to 40%, B, 40 to 55%, C, 60 to 75%, or D, 80 to 90%?
What part you're asking, what industry?
Industry is using versus residential and small businesses.
D.
Here's some C, here's some D. So I think a lot of people are like, they're using an over amount. Right now, the rates that we've kind of pulled from some of the data is 60 to 75%. This is data that is self-reported, and so it is potentially possible that that is even more. But as you can see, they're vastly using the vast majority of water. There's been a lot of conversation, I know people have talked about also, is that, this pressure for more and more water, additional desal plants, we have to keep up with demographic growth in the region. Based on the city's own water, master plan, what is the population growth that we are anticipating in the coming years? Is it A, 1.2%, B, 3.5%, C, 5.8%, or D, 10%?
For the city.
Yes. For the city, for the region.
For the region or the city?
This is the city, yeah. Yeah, that is correct. Due to even some of the distances of data, we've actually seen sometimes the population flat or even dip down a little bit, but this is the number, right, that the city is currently using. And so what that tells us is that we're gonna see basically like a pretty flat, growth over the time with our population growing. And so, where is all this push for water coming from? Since the Inner Harbor desal plant was initially voted down, there's been lots of conversations about alternate projects. So some of these have been the ones that the city council has been kind of discussing or even made like big financial commitments to. So if we add up all of the water provided that could be provided by the Evangeline Aquifer, the fee for the Harbor Island desal plant, the Oasis River wells, potentially even the reuse project, how much more water per day would that provide for the region if all of these projects were created?
C.
We've got 16 million, 28 million, 74 million, or 118 million. That's people saying C. So the answer actually is D. With all of these added together, that would produce a total of 118 million. And so that is a significant amount of water if we're thinking about population basically staying flat.
But that water doesn't just go here.
Right, yes, that would be water for the broader region itself. And I know the final fact that, you know, we like to pull up is there's always a conversation of, right, if industry is coming in, it's gonna provide this mass number of jobs. Gulf Growth Ventures right now is using 13 million gallons of water a day, totaling 10% of the overall water usage in the water sales. So if they're using 10% of the water, what percent of the total jobs do you think they're providing in the region? And that is correct. They are providing 0.3% of the jobs in the region, and so with what we're getting from industry, we're not, you know, this is not a fair share of both the water, the resources that they're using, and so this is really the part of, you know, what we're continuing to elevate in the region. I know Alita previously shared a little bit about kind of the desalination plants and kind of this growth that we've been sharing. And then these are just a visual of some of the upcoming projects that are currently being proposed. You can see they're kind of all over this region, and in addition to other parts of the Texas coast as well.
And the Harbor Island one, it's currently permitted for 50 million gallons of water per day. They're working on permits for 100 million gallons of water per day, but John Byram, the executive director for the Nueces River Authority, is promising 500 million gallons of water per day from the Harbor Island site. So,
Random, big numbers, yeah.
Where will they put the water as they produce it out there?
well, right now they're saying that they're thinking about building, like getting the boring company, like Tesla and Elon Musk to like install this 14-foot pipe, I think, to bring in that water. So they want to bore under Redfish Bay to St. Joe's Island, or, you know, where they're going to locate the Harbor Island plant at, and then from there use that pipe. That they're going to get the boring company because Elon's, you know, he's a benefactor.
Elon's gonna pay for it?
No, no, he's going to charge. But they're saying that the boring company can dig this tunnel to put this pipe in so that they can bring the water. And then the water,
To go offshore?
that one they're just gonna, you know, disperse it into the Gulf. And then that water from the Harbor Island plant should get connected then to the San Pat Municipal Water Management District. And that's where they're saying that water's gonna go into, which they don't have the infrastructure in place. Right, I don't think San Pat is set up for 100 million.
I think they're supposed to take it to Hernandez Pass and then wherever after that.
Well, that's not set up either. What,
Yeah.
are they gonna make a big swimming pool?
Yeah,
Squirt it in there?
we don't know. So yeah, like they're still working on that, but that's what they're promising. And the sad part is that they're already securing contracts they already passed the 100 million gallons of water. They already committed all of that water. But he's still going to other municipalities and saying, hey, I'm gonna get more water, sign a contract with me, and it's a non-refundable contract, so, yeah.
What about La Quinta? Where's it gonna go?
Huh?
The La Quinta one?
That one is, intake and discharge is within the ship channel, the ship channel currently. Yeah. Yeah, so, sorry, the way it showed up on here. This is actually what the city of Corpus Christi, they had a groundwater project last week in San Patricio County because there is the Evangeline Aquifer project. And this is actually one of the posters that they had showing the San Patricio residents that they have the Inner Harbor, aka Hillcrest desalination plant. And so right now it is permitted for up to 30 million gallons of potable drinking water. They're going to be creating a second treatment facility. They already have a low interest SWIFT loans from the Texas Water Development Board for $757 million total amount. That they're telling people they already have all their permits, but actually their discharge permit is still held up, you know, because of the Hillcrest Residents Association. They filed appeal to the TCEQ, so that is actually not true. They have a property agreement with Flint Hills, which is where they're going to take, this is a buffer zone that the community has that was supposed to separate industry from the neighborhood, and so the city is saying they're gonna purchase this for about $5 million, which they are prioritizing this location here because of all the industry that's there. So the infrastructure for them will be a lot cheaper, you know, to connect to that water source than it would be to anywhere else. And Flint Hills is a huge, you know, is gonna benefit from that. Also, as we talked earlier, it's a huge energy hub. So they're gonna have to build a substation in Hillcrest. And those things are also polluters and they cause health issues. But they're not being forthcoming with that information. They're talking about infrastructure assets identified to distribute water, like from there to the navigation pump. And on November 18th, Corpus Christi authorized the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding with the CCD South partners. That is made up between the other two companies that were in the running to build out this desal plant. I will tell you, their scores are all terrible. Whenever the city manager and the team the committee that they put together to score all of these facilities to build out this project, the information was minimal. Teachers are under more restrictions whenever they're doing their evaluations than they did for this like multi-billion-dollar facility. There was hardly any comments. Their scores were just numbers. And this is like a huge facility, the cost that's gonna be passed on to we the people, not just, you know, for 1 year or 2 years. This is like 30-something years. So, you know, future generations are gonna be paying for this in more ways than one, not just the financial cost. So, you know, they were talking about this. I think it's also really important that the information that we share here to share with those in Sampat and others who have questions on desal, because that was a gentleman who was saying, look, you're having us now here who live in Sinton. We had to solve the city of Corpus Christi's problem because y'all sold the water, and then you said no to the Inner Harbor desalination plant. Like, they were saying that that was a stupid decision, but there's problems, as we all know, with the Hillcrest desalination plant. But they're under this assumption that if this gets built, it's going to, you know, solve our water crisis, and that is absolutely not the case. Questions and answers? We could just go through this, Pam, and then we can make comments and Q&A after. So right now, this is the current timeline for the Inner Harbor desal plant. As you know, Peter said on the November 18th meeting, they approved the MOU. They're going to have another meeting sometime this month to decide. You know, they're going to have that additional approval for it. They're asking to have some far field modeling done, some additional cost analysis, you know, and that's going to happen. The final approval for this contract should be by March or April 2026. So even though it feels like we have some time, we also really don't have very much time. So this is the information that they were presenting to the residents of San Patricio County for the Evangeline project. This is the Gulf Coast Aquifer. This runs from Louisiana all the way down to northern Mexico. This Gulf Coast Aquifer. So it's not just Corpus Christi, the city of Sinton, and all of these communities who are accessing water from that aquifer. It is all these communities from Louisiana all the way down to Mexico who are accessing water from the aquifer. So they say there's like 500 years that are available on there, but with the way we're using water, that is just not the truth. That is not the case, because in our water plans, they said we have enough water until 2050, and we don't even have enough water, according to them, to last us, you know, until next year, which is bonkers. So yeah, this is all the information on the aquifers. We're talking about salinity levels. A gentleman did say like there's an issue with this because there's high levels of arsenic in that water. And so his question is, how is the city of Corpus Christi going to clean that water, and how is it not going to exacerbate the problem that we have with arsenic in our water? How are you going to treat it? Because you can say you're going to remove it, but it's still going to build up over time. Same thing with the PFAS, the forever chemicals that are in the water in the ship channels. That builds up over time. So I'm now going to pass it to Jason to talk about far field modeling.
Thanks.
everyone, my name is Jason. I'm one of the community members. I've been asking for far field modeling the past couple of years. The city has recently committed to doing a far field model, so I just kind of want to explain what we're expecting out of that, or what we can expect out of it. Right now, there aren't a lot of details, so I'm just going to kind of try to cover all the bases, and that way, when we do learn more, we'll be more educated on it. So basically, I want to see who here is familiar with the far field modeling. They're like aware of it. Okay, cool, awesome. So why would we want to do a far field model? Will anyone help me out?
Basically, it predicts what's going to end up happening if they actually go through with it. They
Cool.
create a smaller model and
Yeah, so I like to think of it like, there's like storm trackers for hurricanes. Basically, this is like that, but for brine, to see where it moves throughout the day. Instead of looking forward, usually it looks backwards. So like one that we had done here was like 2010 and 2011. And so basically they get all this data like wind and river inputs into the bays and salinity and temperature. And they had the model figure out what kind of mixing and movement happened to make those data points happen. And that's how they come up with models. The models aren't perfect, but it's a lot better than nothing, and it's a lot better than what we have right now. So what we have right now is called near field modeling, and that's like the first 500 feet. It's not very far, but basically that mixing that happens right off the bat happens quick. So you basically, that's all you're looking for is like that first few hundred feet. And then after that, you're supposed to do far field modeling. It's a pretty common process. So near field modeling, it's like basically a giant aquarium that's like 50 feet tall, 500 feet wide, and water moves at a constant speed. And that's basically what they're predicting is that effluent dilution. But in the real world, that doesn't happen. You know, water moves back and forth. Sometimes it's chill, sometimes it's different. You know, basically mixing in an estuary is like super complicated. There's all sorts of processes. And so you want to use far field modeling to kind of like figure out, will it accumulate in the ship channel? Because that's basically just like a funnel, you know. And you want to know if it's going to accumulate because it's connected to the Nueces Bay, and that's a very important bay here. And if you get flooded with effluent from the desal. Okay, so I say far field modeling is kind of like an inspection for your house. You know, you want to figure out before you buy the house, is there mold issues? Is there foundation issues? Because the house may seem like a good deal, but if you have those issues, it may not be worth it. It might be better to go somewhere else. So for example, with Inner Harbor, let's see if I can get a picture. Okay, so here's the Inner Harbor. We're what, like right here somewhere, right? And so basically you want to know if it's going to accumulate, if it's going to have dead zones because it's not mixing good. And to get, if there was a huge problem, basically what we're concerned about is that if they built it and there turned out to be a lot of problems, you have to build an offshore pipe that's 20 miles long to go all the way out to the Gulf, which would be super expensive. That's like hundreds of $1 millions. It may be cheaper just to do it somewhere else, like Fort Davis and Flower Bluff. That's about 4 miles instead of 20 miles to go offshore, so that'd be 5 times cheaper for the pipeline. And that's if we need the water, because like y'all said earlier, you know, we already have 118 million gallons a day of new water coming in, and we only use 110, so it's like, how much water do we need, right? But basically, we just want to make sure we're not going to waste our money on some plant that doesn't work, right? So this is our inspection to make sure we're spending our money wisely, basically. And so the issue is that TCEQ requires near field modeling, and that's it, which is not very much. 3 experts from universities have looked at the permit and the near field modeling. They said it's insufficient and that we need far field modeling. So that's what we've been asking for. The city said they're going to do it, but we don't really know much. Right now, what we know is that there's going to be a stakeholder group that has key stakeholders, which are people from the university and I think the Leatherworks program. And then there's going to be like 6 community group members. Allegedly, we don't know. You know, there's no really firm details. And the only other thing we know than that is that it's going to be done sooner than they originally planned. And that's about it. Oh, and it's going to be for all the bays in the area instead of just the inner harbor channel. Because with the city's previous contractor, Kiewit, they had just looked at the inner harbor, which really doesn't tell you much. Because you want to know how it all circulates. Especially because, like, there's a power plant right here that takes water from the inner harbor and puts it into the Nueces Bay. And it's very likely that it could just come around and then recirculate. And the problem is whatever salinity it takes in, it basically concentrates it. So as the salinity for the intake goes up, so does the output salinity, and it can create like a feedback loop. And like even without the Nueces Bay component, just right here, the intake is like half a mile from the outfall. So that's like the distance from here to the art museum. It's really not that far. So there is a high likelihood that if the fluid is mixing well between like up and down throughout the water column, that it would make it to the intake. I think our concern is that it won't mix well and that it'll actually sink and it will cause dead zones. So if it doesn't sink, it could screw up the operations. If it does sink, create dead zones. So it's like, could be a bad idea either way, right? And I think, oh yeah, okay, so this is a model, far field model from the port. They did a far field model for their La Quinta plant, but they also included all the other plants that were proposed in the area. And so what's cool about this is that you can download the files and you can look at it from a demo version of the software. It's EFDC plus, something like that. And so that's what we did. We looked at results for the inner harbor, and this was like for August of 2011, which was like a dry year. That year, the effluent basically would have violated the TCEQ permit for the inner harbor plant 50 to 75% of the year, something like that. So, and that was like a pretty simplified input. They didn't really put a lot of effort into it because they were modeling La Quinta, their own project, not this one. And so that gives us a good idea of what we're looking at, but we won't really know until we kind of do our own model with really accurate estimates. Let's see, concerns. Oh yeah, so the stakeholder group is getting together at some point, and then they're going to figure out what they want from the modeling and suggest people to solicit bids from. And then maybe a month later, they'll decide who to go with, and that'll start the modeling project, which would be like in January, and the vote for the inner harbor is in April. So that gives them about 3 months to do the study and to review the results, which is kind of like a super condensed timeline. So one of my main concerns is that basically there's no way we can get that done in time. And my point would be we shouldn't, our council members shouldn't vote on the inner harbor until we basically get our house inspection plan, right? Let's see, and the reason it's important is because there was a report done in 2021 from Dr. Montagna at the Heart Research Institute. It's called Vulnerability of, I think, Coastal Bend Bays. And he said that our bays are facing a lot of water quality pressures, especially when it comes to salinity. Basically, climate change, which is increasing temperatures, which increases evaporation, which increases salinity. You also have sea level rise, which is kind of like screwing up habitats too. So our bays are under a lot of pressure, and we also have 4 desal plants proposed in our bays too. So a lot of pressure. We need to make sure that we do this right and that we do it, and that it's a meaningful endeavor that informs decision making instead of being just right. And I think that's it.
Geez, and when y'all were going to do the simulation, were y'all noticing something too, like on the modeling, like they were using lower numbers than?
Okay, so the modeling, the input for the salinity to the desal plant is fixed. So basically, say the salinity in the channel went up, the intake salinity wouldn't go up. So it wasn't being dynamic, it was very static, which is not accurate. That's the only thing I can think of right now. But there was a lot of simplifications made. Basically, they assumed it was instantly mixed throughout the water column as soon as it came out, instead of being like a concentrated stream that started about 20 feet deep, and usually brine's heavy, so it tends to sink rather than be evenly mixed.
Which is why they say, like, with the ship traffic,
Right.
that will help mix.
Right, bring it back to the intake.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, the big mixers.
Yeah.
Real quick, or can we ask questions now?
Yeah, yeah. I was
Okay,
gonna say,
so
you wanted to-
on that picture where you were showing the bay, can you go back to that real quick? That one right there.
This
No,
one?
yeah, that one.
Okay.
So I noticed on there where it says the high and the low, is that the depth of the water in those areas?
Okay, so this is bottom dissolved oxygen, and this is just the seasonal hypoxic event that happens where the dissolved oxygen gets low. And this is like July, August, September time. And so basically, this is the bottom DO, which I think is about half a foot. And the highest measurement they had, which is like 5.8, that's pretty average, I think, for dissolved oxygen. And then the lowest one they had was 4.9 for that particular one. What prompted the study was that there was a hypoxic event that led to a fish kill of like 600 fish.
It was that brown tide in the bay, and that's what I hit him with at the TCEQ meeting downtown.
Okay, yeah.
And that's when I asked them that question, what are they going to do when that happens again? And they kind of looked at each other, they had no idea about it.
Yeah.
So that told me their modeling has no clue of what's going to actually happen in that bay.
No, not at all, yeah.
Yep.
What about temperature changes when it's really, really hot or really cold? Have they
Right.
done dissolved oxygen studies for them?
They haven't done dissolved oxygen studies. They've done stratification studies for the near-field modeling, basically looking at the density at certain temperatures to say that they looked at critical conditions where it's like, more likely to have problems. But really, there wasn't much of a difference in those, and so it didn't really translate to any difference in the normal modeling results they had. But I think you're right. Like, I think temperature will make a bigger difference than they're saying it is.
And the time of day you take.
And the time of day, yeah, because usually it's at night where the dissolved oxygen, I can't remember,
Okay,
one of them.
it just depends on the temperature and,
Yeah,
I mean, you have to do it in the different depths and everything, you have to do
Right.
it, it's a lot of testing.
yeah, like the city said that there wouldn't be any stratification issues, but whenever I talked to like academic experts, they said like, there's no way, it's just how deep it is and the nature of the channel, there is stratification. If you look at the SWCMs, which is surface water quality monitoring data, it shows that it is stratified, which means it's less likely to be good. It's going to reinforce that stratification and probably get worse. But yeah, temperature makes a huge difference, and hopefully with the particle modeling, we can get a more accurate picture of all that kind of stuff. It's kind of tough though, because dissolved oxygen is a secondary effect. It's not really a direct effect of desalination. Usually desalination makes it super salty at the bottom, which inhibits replenishment of oxygen, and that's the secondary effect. And so that makes the modeling a little bit harder because you basically have to do a separate model where the dissolved oxygen is getting inhibited. So it's not like something you can directly kind of do.
What's the flow of water? I'm assuming it's from the ship channel into the bay, into the Gulf.
That's a good question. We had, there was a scientist from Florida who's written a book on mixing and estuaries, and he was looking at the velocity measurements that Christi did here, and basically what he was saying is that the center of the channel, so imagine like a 4-lane road, the center 2 lanes are going inwards, and then the outer 2 lanes are going outwards. So it's like a constant flow the whole time. basically. Oh, sorry.
So it's pushing
Yeah, it's like
the brine back up.
Yeah, so why would you build a discharge essentially upstream?
Right. I'm not sure why they chose to do that. The guy who designed the desal location and setup, he is a water treatment guy. He doesn't know anything about mixing or estuaries or anything like that. He's just mostly, so I don't know. I don't think they really put enough thought into that.
Is there anywhere in the world that has a similar,
No.
that, so that they can do their far field modeling and then compare it to that?
There's nothing quite like this. There are.
Anything even similar?
It's tough. The thing that's most similar is like 6 miles wide instead of like 600 feet wide.
Where's that at?
That's in Australia, Perth, I think. And it's way deeper. There's really nothing that compares to this because this is a closed basis or semi-enclosed basis. Yeah. And yeah, like Tampa is an open bay system. Carlsbad is open ocean. Yeah. I think there's one in France where they dilute it with seawater at a high ratio before putting it out into a channel, sort of like this. But I think they use an open pipe instead of diffuser. Just in case anyone doesn't know, a diffuser is kind of like a jet nozzle on your water hose. And basically, it does rapid mixing for the first like 100 feet or so, and then it's kind of just regular mixing after that.
I think Tampa's had to build, they had to build another plant just to clean the water before.
Right.
So now you have to build because it's getting fogged up,
Yeah.
which is what will happen here because of all the silt and all the organic matter.
Yeah, they do maintenance dredging, right? So they're kicking out silt all the time. The ships are kicking out silt. And then
What do we have on the bottom that when they do maintenance dredging, like, do we have any mercury or anything in?
We got tons of stuff.
No, I mean, so when you dredge, you bring up the mercury
Right.
because it's heavy, so
So
it's
it's gonna
down
cost more.
below.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's rhetorical, I know the answer,
Yeah.
but I'm asking you what, if you're dredging, you're bringing up all that stuff, and where are you gonna put it?
So it would go to the dump because the pre-treatment would knock out the solids, according to them, and then it would just get trucked off. So that would be an extra.
Trucked up
expense.
where? Where do you throw it, where's away?
Republic, environmental, one of those kind of things.
Right now, they said the method, like the landfill, and then if there's like any other of the really terrible stuff, Republic Services.
Yeah,
So they'll somehow get the mercury out of that?
right, that probably should go to Republic. And then, so one of the things is if it is hypoxic in the channel, that creates anaerobic reactions, which actually can release sediments that were stuck there. Yeah, so it would be a huge nightmare that if it caused hypoxia and oxygen.
What about forever chemicals? Are they done?
Right. So, so PFAS, desalination is supposed to remove, it's like the best treatment for removing PFAS. So my question is like, you know, how often are you monitoring that? And then how long do the filters last? Because you can't just send infinite PFAS to it and then just takes it away for 6 years or whatever the life of the cartridges or the filters. And my concern is brine is heavy, but what about PFAS? Like, is that neutrally buoyant? Because if it is, then that could have a feedback loop where it's getting increasing concentrations of PFAS.
Where are they gonna put those when they throw them away?
They just discharge them. They took it out of the bay, they put it back in the bay. That's how they
No,
do
I
it.
mean, what the filters that they filter out.
Oh, yeah,
Where are you gonna throw those away?
landfill, if it's okay.
But then it just leaches back into the well water and everything else.
Well, they got liners, right?
And they're really expensive. Neil McQueen said he's helping, like not even with a desal plant, just filters, you know, for another project, and they're costly.
Plus the tariffs just quadruple.
Yeah. Which was the problem for the Kiewit plant. The tariffs were increasing those costs, and something that Kiewit does is they do like end of project cost analysis versus hey, we're just gonna give you this number and then we're gonna tell you it's gonna increase by this much as we're building it out. They try to look at the life of the project and they price it according to that. And so that's why that was really high, and it wasn't even at the highest amount that we project this project to cost us because of everything, like all of the substations, the filters, the maintenance, like, it's just really expensive.
So, if the date that it's approved and they can start building whatever they're gonna build, how long from that date to when it is actually working as a desal?
I think 3 to 4 years is what they use.
3 to 4, that's all?
Because Hewitt project was supposed to be done in 28.
Yeah.
Didn't the Carlsbad plant in California have to be shut down and reconfigured because it was messed up so bad? The same thing happened in Tampa as well. So I mean, you got a start date and then you got a start date.
Right. Well, I think Carlsbad, they used to put these with power plants because power plants take in a lot of water. But then
Nuclear power.
Yeah, yeah. And then I think due to laws in California, they stopped using that power plant and then had to reconfigure it into something like that. Maybe the same thing for Tampa. I don't know. But yeah, Tampa's been down 20% of the time, and then Carlsbad has been. So it hasn't been 100%, but I think it's something like that. But yeah, I'm sure they all have their issues.
On this picture right here,
Uh-huh.
what are the color changes there?
Right, right. So blue is 0, and then red is 2 parts per thousand and beyond. And so the permit for the TCEQ is 2 parts per thousand. It's a little bit less than that. And then it's for the 400 feet from the outfall. So each cell is about, which you can't really see in that well, but each cell is about 400 feet right here. So basically, if this is red, that's a permit violation. But that's if they measure it. They're only gonna measure it 4 times a year according to the permit. So, you know.
So that,
Who made that model?
This is the ports model that they did for the La Quinta plant. LRV Water did it, and you can find it on their website. I also have a video online with the whole run. It's got like.
So they just kind of made it up?
Made it up? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, they didn't really, they just made that up and it's,
Oh, so,
they actually did a scientific study for that?
well, because they did the whole base system for La Quinta, and then they plugged in all of the proposed plants, and then they posted all of the runs online, and so you can download them and then watch the animation of all the runs. Basically, you look at the base run, which is like 0 desal plants, and then you subtract the run for like Inner Harbor, and whatever the difference is, that's what those colors are, and that's supposed to be like the salinity impact.
And am I right in saying they did that because of a public information request that folks made?
So one of the lawyers for the court had messaged Drew Molly and said basically, hey, the court just did a model, it looks terrible, you should look at it. And then we found that email, and that prompted us to get to ask the court for their model for the public information request, which took a month or 2. And you had to buy a hard drive, but eventually they handed it over, and then they uploaded everything onto their website.
so this is a prime example of what I was talking about at the TCEQ, because if we all know you bust a hose in your yard or you have a water main break, what ends up happening, you have that main river that comes out, and as it's coming out of the soil, it's dirty as hell. However, you get a few feet away from it, it starts to clear out, but you see all the sediments go off into the areas that they don't have any current or continuous flow. So basically, it's gonna find a river the easiest way downhill. This is pointing it out right there. You can see the channel in that dark blue area, and that leads to the Port A channel. Right there, everything around it, you can see where it's coming out of the bay and it's leaving that channel and it's forming sediment onto the right and left side.
Right, yeah.
So it goes back to that other picture too, where they were talking about that dead zone in that area, and that's why that was my biggest question, because they said if they have enough water inflow and outflow that would keep this from being a problem
Right.
is a total lie, because if we didn't have a problem, we would never have a dead zone in the Bay of Corpus Christi.
Yeah.
Period. We would never have it.
This doesn't even have like the breakwaters and everything. So,
Well, I was just kind of
yeah.
addressing it, but when you're ready, I'll share some more info, because I know you're. So.
But yeah, this doesn't have like the breakwaters that are normally like by the barge dock and the aquarium, which kind of, if you look, like it's usually like a lot chiller, you know, so there, in my mind, would be less mixing. And this model doesn't have those, so I'm curious if you add those, how that changes.
Well, it's gonna create currents that will twirl it.
No.
It'll hit the breakwaters and curl back on itself. And the other one, they'll hit the other breakwater and curl back on themselves. And then the two twirlies curling back on themselves.
Right? So that'll be interesting. Hopefully they can add that for the model.
And then when the giant mixers come in.
Right, yeah.
Well, that's kind of the problem with the Laginka channel, because they put up that barrier, so now it's just kind of doing your twirlers, like you said, like, you know, it's creating that issue, you know, so it's,
Forgive my ignorance, but I saw a report on Channel 6 News, and they were talking about what we could do with the brine instead of just discharging it into the water. If they did follow through with one of those plans, would the desal plant be as terrible as it sounds like it is now? I mean, if we could do something with the brine, would there still be, I mean, we're still taking water from the fishes and stuff, but would there still be really terrible effects?
Yes, the sludge.
Right, so,
Sludge.
to do something like alternate with the brine, like if you wanted to evaporate it in a pond, would take like an enormous amount of acres. I think it's like 2,000 acres. But maybe if you like send it to a process where you separate it for like lithium and then do something with that, after the waste from that. I think the main issues would be like impingement from taking in water. It could be like shredding wildlife, like you know, juvenile larvae and stuff like that. But I think for the most part, I think brine and the effluent is kind of like the main concern. So that would alleviate a lot of stuff.
But we don't have anywhere to do that. That's a nice thing to think about.
Right.
and once again, like where the desal plant is located is along the refinery road, where for decades you have industry discharging their treated wastewater. There's no definition, there are no standards for treated wastewater, it's whatever they report to TCEQ. And so we don't know what is in that water. There's been no water quality test that TCEQ requires. And you know, it's corrosive as well. You know, you're taking all of these things, you're increasing the concentrated amount of salinity in our water because you are taking that from our ship channels. And then industry is still going to continue discharging all of their treated wastewater into that area. So it's a problem that's like, it compounds upon itself, and it's not going to solve our problem because once again, the water is not for our community.
Why don't they reuse their treated wastewater?
It's cheaper for them to buy water from the city. Yeah.
Has the permit changed? And what I mean by that is because on the original permit that TCEQ approved, they were supposed to be releasing 3 million gallons of sludge along with the brine into the bay, into the inner harbor.
Right. So it's supposed to be dewatered sludge. Okay, there's sludge, and then there's a process where they dewater it, and that 3 million gallons a day is supposed to be the water removed from the sludge. But I don't know. People say it's sludge. It could be sludge. That's still in the permit. You can look at like it's like in the middle of the permit, like page 100.
Yeah.
Show like a process.
Is it briny sludge?
Is the brine sludge? They say it's supposed to be clear and just.
No, I mean, what is the sludge?
So there's a solid separation process that gets rid of like all the carbon and suspended solids, and that's supposed to go to the dump. But you have to separate the water from that solids, and it takes a couple of steps. It's like a centrifuge, there's a dissolved air flotation kind of stuff. And so the 3 million gallons a day is supposed to be the water removed from the solids, but you know, there's still will there be solids in there, how much, doesn't really say.
So there's no treatment, there's no testing plan?
Yeah, no, it's a
Where,
good
you know,
question.
you go to the water treatment plant and you find out how much they're releasing what it is every, whatever the state requires, which probably isn't much, but, you should
Yeah.
be able to read what the quality of the discharge water is.
Right, I'm not too sure about that. I know that we'll be testing like the water that's gonna go into our like taps basically, but I'm not sure how often they're testing the like stuff that's going into the bay. I know they're testing the bay 4 times a year, but I'm not sure about like the stuff that goes into the bay like before it reaches the bay. They could test that more frequently, I'm not sure.
Haven't they already tried desal in other places, like Freeport, I think Freeport, and Brownsville?
Yeah, Port of Brownsville had one, but they didn't have the pre-treatment where it removed a lot of the solids, so it constantly ran into issues. And so basically, Christi Nichols is like, we're gonna do dissolved air flotation and we'll have nothing to worry about. Kind of find that hard to believe, but kind of hard to prove otherwise. But yeah, Brownsville had a lot of issues, Tampa's had a lot of issues for the same reason. Basically, doing desal in a ship channel is gonna cost you more because it's full of so much sediment.
And why are we charging individuals instead of industry?
What's that?
Why are we charging people instead of industry?
So the city says the cost is going to be split. So if industry uses 60% of our water, basically they would be taking on 60% of the cost. But the fact is, a lot of the water that goes to industry is raw water, and that's a lot cheaper than treated water. We send treated water to a lot of industry here in Corpus, but a lot of the water for industry in St. Pat is sent as raw water, which we sell to St. Pat for much cheaper, and then they treat it and they sell it. So out of the treated water users, there's probably about 30 million gallons a day for industry, that's just in Corpus, and then there's about 35 million gallons a day for residents. So we would be splitting the cost 50-50 basically on desal. Even though, we're not really prompting the need for 30 MGD.
A few years ago, they posted up a deal showing that the 3 different businesses that were going to be getting 25 million gallons of this 30 million gallons projected to come in for 3 different incoming businesses. It's already pre-sold to them.
Right.
So in reality, we're not getting 30 million. Even if they say we're going to get half of that,
Yeah.
25 million is already gone.
Yeah.
5 million of that is what's going to be left over. But if they're already talking about they're going to take another 60% of that 5 million, we're only getting like what, 1.5 million after that?
I imagine the most we would get is like 10% out of this project. And there's an engineer here in Corpus who presented to Portland about water in the area. He basically said we should be charging impact fees for new large users because they're the ones creating the need for us to spend $1 billion on desal.
That's a good one. I like that.
So, you talked about splitting the cost, that's what CCW is saying, but currently, as we speak,
Right.
The price being charged to industry and to residents is the same, been the same since September 23.
Yeah.
Before that, the industry was only paying 40% as much as residents were per gallon.
Yeah.
And the increase that the city council voted on in September 2023 to increase industry water rates has been challenged before the Public Utilities Commission. They still have not acted yet in more than 18 months now.
Yeah, so
the attorneys at the city told me that they think the PUC will ultimately split the baby and reduce their rates back down to about $3 a gallon. Ours is currently at $3.94.
Right. Wow. So that'd be huge. The industries that are suing us for the year of 24 and I think the year of 25. And they just merged those cases together. There was like a huge issue. But if you look at it, it's on the PU's website, there is so much information they're requesting from the city, and they're really going to pick it apart, and they're probably going to find a way to where they don't have to pay as much. So, at the end of the day, we're probably going to be paying for more than 50%, probably closer to 75% of this project.
Well, they don't get fined for overuse either. They can run.
Yeah.
And we have to build everything back.
Well, as a utility, CCW is required to provide water to people who ask for it and to do it reliably. That's their obligation as a basically monopoly utility, is to provide water. And you can make the argument that they didn't do that because we're about to run out of water in a year. So, I don't know. Yeah, it's tough. And we can't charge them more than it costs to make that water, because if we did charge them more, they find innovative ways to reuse the water they have. But the PUC won't let us do that. We have to charge whatever it costs, no more than that, other than paying for employees and stuff like that.
Can we change the law?
Well, it's a reminder,
It's
the
a state law.
governor, also,
Yeah.
the governor appoints PUC commissioners.
Yeah.
So, how deep is the Evangelina aquifer?
I'm not too sure. It's at a certain depth.
Yeah,
And it depends on how far away you are from the coast. Let's see. Right, so this is 7,000 feet when you're 100 miles away from the coast.
Yeah, none of
Wait,
us
wait.
are 100 miles.
Wait. This is inland, right? These are all 10 miles, no Oasis Lake. I'm not too sure where they did the track.
I think it's just like that little blue area.
Right,
It's like-
so, okay, this is the Oasis, and then this is 5,000 feet below. And let's see, where does this say Evangeline?
Right there, if you look at the hydro.
Okay, Evangeline's upper Goliad, lower Goliad, upper Lagarto. So 4, 5, 6, 7. But it doesn't show. Okay, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's about 1,000 feet to 4,000 feet deep for Evangeline.
And I saw something else that they're trying to make CCW, the Corpus Christi water personnel, be in charge of the desal plant, which scares the living hell out of me because look at all the water boils we've had to do in the last 10 years. It is, how can they put these people in charge of something that's so, it's an experimental deal. That scares me even more because if they can't even do their regular job, they got one job of keeping our water clean, and they can't even do that, and we're stuck over here, water boil after water boil after water boil. But you want to put these guys in charge of an experimental deal? Scares me even more. It's like, yeah.
So when the partners presented to council last month, they asked if someone would operate, or if they could find someone to operate the plant for them. I think the city manager committed to finding someone else to operate it. If they didn't, they could hire someone to help them start, But I think the plan as of right now, according to the commitments made, is to get someone else that does it legally.
What standard would that someone else be trained to?
Hopefully it'd be a company
Corpus Christi standard.
Corpus Christi standard?
that does this in other areas, and they would be similar standards to those areas, whether it's like Australia or Europe or in the US. But we don't know. Yeah. I'm not sure what kind of standards they have internationally for running a desal plant.
Cause like,
Hopefully
Gravity
something.
standards?
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was one of the problems with like SB7 and Proposition 4 and all that, is that a lot of these projects that they were pushing for, like there was like no standards really written into that, any protections like for our bays and estuaries and our coasts.
The only standards I'm aware of is the drinking water quality, which they would test super frequently, but that's about it.
Thanks. Albert?
Can you put it back on the bay one?
Which one? This one?
That one right there. How you doing, guys? My name is Albert Santucci. I'm Team Hard Life Captain of a shark fishing team. I got Hard Life's Bait and Tackle, A to Z Tackle Distributing, and a YouTube channel called Team Hard Life. I'm actually recording for it right now because one of the main objectives here is getting the word out to people that don't know what's going on. A lot of the things that we're addressing here is, again, people under the assumption that, oh, it's water, it's what we need. I might look at my yard. They're automatically assuming it's for us, and that's what the fear mongering has been geared toward. They've been doing this intentionally to scare everybody to believe that we're not going to be able to turn on our faucet and take a shower. We're not going to be able to wash our dishes or wash our clothes and stuff like that. Well, that has already been debunked multiple times at city council meetings. If you actually go back through, they've asked and they have proven it time and time again that no, as citizens, we're not going to run out of water. However, the way industry is working, it is pulling so much water, which we all already know, and we're paying for it. But everybody keeps defending industry because they bring a lot of jobs. We've already proved that wrong as well. You know, the fishing industries, the hotels, the restaurants, and everything else that supply tourism is so much bigger. However, when they battle us in court for their tax reduction on property taxes, on the use of water per gallon and stuff like that, guess who ends up footing that bill when instead of them paying $2.5 million in their taxes and they're only paying $998 million, we are. So these are the things that with my channel I'm trying to get out there and keep voicing it, because again too, putting the real knowledge out there and actually putting this in paper and then showing stuff like this, because I'm a fisherman. I've been fishing this area since I was about 4 years old. So I've seen firsthand when we had those kills from red tide and brown tide. And if you actually look into how this desal plant is supposed to work, it's not going to be allowed to run if there's a brown tide in the bay or a red tide in the bay. And if y'all lived here more than 10 years, y'all can remember where so many people were hospitalized because of the red tide and the brown tide in the Bay of Corpus Christi. Like the hospitals were overwhelmed, like they couldn't even take any more people. They were basically blocking people out. Excuse me. So on that note, if you pay attention, this is where they want to put the desal plant, the first one. They keep saying that the Port A jetties right here is what's going to offset it way back over here in the bay. And if y'all heard me earlier when I said, you know, the water coming through the ground is going to disperse, well, it's going to disperse over here. It's not going to reach all the way back over here. So when they're trying to say that it's going to come out and it's going to be a highway like that, what are they going to do, pipe it all the way up? It's the only way to make it happen. So right now, what it's going to do is going to continue to go outward, come down this way, fill into those other estuaries there, and it's going to kill our whole bay system. So all of our fishing, our swimming, just everything, it's going to create, the salinity is going to be so high that we already have a problem here in the Gulf Coast. And we had to deal with this as an aircraft mechanic on the base. It was desalinization of aircrafts that went up and flew. Every day they had to get a freshwater rinse because the amount of salt that's in the air corrodes everything. We know this because even though our houses aren't by the water, stuff in our house is corroding, and if you're not wiping down every day, you can see it. If you leave it there for a couple of weeks in your garage, you can go to your table and wipe off salt. They're going to make it worse because as it does get hotter, we're going to have a lot more salt water or salt dispersed into the environment, and we're going to be dealing with a lot more issues other than just a dead bay. It is going to kill our city, and then they're going to make us pay for it. Why do they want to make us pay for it? Multiple reasons. When it destroys this and becomes an ecological disaster, who's going to be responsible?
The city.
We are, because we paid for it. But if they pay for it, then we can hold them accountable. So that's why this is going this way, to make, they keep pushing it for the city to pay for it, for the city to pay for it. But also too, the main word you gotta pay attention to is experimental. They're using our city as an experiment to see if this is even capable of being done. And then they're gonna really put the nail in the coffin by making more of them. What, 5 projected desal plants in the bay? It's asinine. Excuse my language, but it's gonna kill everything. Now our tourism pulls in $2.5 billion of tourism money that comes into our city because of that. You pull all of that, guess how much more money we're gonna have in taxes?
water bills, light bill, everything is gonna go through the roof. This AEP to power this thing, who's gonna pay for that? You can't tell me AEP, oh, we're gonna give it to them. No, it don't happen like that. Somebody foots the bill, and it's always the people down at the bottom. So everybody that's here needs to pass the word. Like right now, I'm recording, I don't know what you're recording for, but when you see people are posting up about this, share it. Text it, share it, comment on it as well, because any social media platform, the way it works is, you know this on Facebook, you posted something 10 years ago. Somebody comments on it and it's on the top of the newsfeed, like, hey, you went bowling without me? Dude, that was like 10 years ago, bro. Well, that's the deal. The more times you keep commenting, the higher it keeps getting on the top and on the top. So if you keep all these programs and channels that are talking about this at the top of the news feed, people are gonna get notified. Don't let it get buried. So that's the best thing I can teach y'all here. When you see something, whether you don't agree with the person or not, as long as they're pushing that we don't have to foot the bill for the destruction of our city, comment on it, guys. We have one thing, and it's to save our city, save our bay, save our way of life. Because I mean, I love Corpus. I left in '98 to join the Marine Corps. Came out 4 years later, and I came right back to the city I love. And like I said, I've got a family here, got businesses here, and I will continue to protect it any which way I can. Yes, ma'am.
It's not just destroying Corpus and the bay. It comes down. I live in Hernandez County,
Yes.
and it's gonna destroy everything. And all the fishermen there, everybody that utilizes the water, and we really need to get that word out, especially all the, I mean, how many small six-pack licenses are there up there? There's a ton of them. And everything's gonna die.
Yeah. No. Can you?
And the breeding areas.
Oh, that's all that goes with
Yeah.
the edges of it? Yes, no, you're exactly right, because you got Port A here, and then you come back over here, and you got Hernandez Pass, and Rockport, and Portland, and all these areas that come into this area are gonna be affected. Well, it's gonna start way over here, and it's just gonna keep bleeding out, and it's gonna be fast. Our bay is at the deepest point, like 12 foot. It's not gonna take long for this to be an ecological disaster, literally overnight.
Well, the far field model needs to go far field.
Yeah, it needs to go all the way down to Baffin Bay and all of that.
Baffin Bay.
It needs to go all as far as the island of Corpus, or Padre Island National Sea, you know, the whole Padre Island, because you got North Padre Island, you got South Padre Island. The whole barrier island, everything, down north, everything needs to be, these little estuaries, everything needs to be within that far field model, because you see it every day. When water is poured out, it's gonna leave a clean slate, but all the debris and all the sediment's gonna go to the right and the left. It's never gonna make it back over there until it's completely filled out, this whole area, and then it starts making its way there. Now, it's gonna take months to get to the end, but during that time, we're gonna have those effects for decades. It's gonna, in 1990, 1991, the shrimpers actually sued the city because the salinity in the Bay of Corpus Christi was so high that the crabs' shells that were coming in were corroded because the salt was eating their shells. Shrimp, they were plummeting. The numbers were not even enough for them to be able to make a living off of it. So they sued the city of Corpus Christi to force them to start releasing more water from Lake Mathes, Show Canyon, and all of that to get into the Bay of Corpus Christi. It's obvious that the city has forgotten about that lawsuit, and they are totally ignoring it. So again, guys, this is not something that hasn't already been dealt with or addressed. It has been addressed. We have gotten into where we are saving the bay by inputting more fresh water into it, but they're talking about taking that and circumventing the whole deal, because even if they release water and it comes in through that channel, all it's gonna do is just push the sediment further out. But you gotta remember this too. There's another desal plant in, I forget where it's at, but they made one up, and industry is running it. They're already releasing the brine into part of the Nueces River, my subscribers were telling me about it, and I'm tired, I don't remember exactly where it's at, but the water that's already coming in, it's already gotten brine already discharged into it.
Is that the one in Alice?
I believe so, yes. So there's already salinity already being added already. They're sending me pictures that the area where the water is, the brine is already going there, all the grass has already died. So that's just that small portion, and that's a small desal plant compared to the one that they want to put in here in another closed bay area.
Plus they're gonna put the La Quinta channel and everything else, so they're gonna, all that is gonna be circulating around in there.
It's not even gonna circulate.
Yeah.
So what you were talking about earlier, when the water comes out, it creates those little eddies. They're little, they're not, I mean, to what I call little, because I shark fish on the beach, I go from Galveston to South Padre, and so those little eddies, even if it comes out right here, it'll create an eddy maybe 20 to 30 feet across, that's it. So that water will sit there and circulate. Everything towards those inner bays, right near the Lexington and right in front of the Art Museum, it only affects those little areas right there. And when you go further to the Lexington, on the inside of that inner harbor, all that is real calm. No matter if there is a big rush of a high tide or a low tide, that always stays calm. It never has any breakwater. The only time it actually gets any waves is if we have a strong southeast wind, which is 90% of the time in Corpus, we have a 10 to 15 mile per hour wind, except during the hottest months in July, and when we don't have any wind and stuff like that. And that's where it creates those dead zones of zero oxygen in the bay. And actually, I believe they called it the death triangle. And that's why I can't understand when they're telling that, oh, there's enough water inflow. If there was, we wouldn't have any dead zones, period. We would never have red tide. Well, we would never have brown tide. Red tide is formed from all the water that, when it rains on shore, on land, and it goes out to sea carrying all the feces and the fertilizers and chemicals, and once it reaches the saltwater environment, that's where it creates the red tide. But we haven't had that because the Gulf Stream actually switched up when the last hurricane came through, and now Florida's been getting it. They've been getting hammered. You notice we haven't had red tide in probably the last 10 years? That's why the Gulf Stream changed up. But here's the other thing too, if they pipe this out, it needs to be far enough out there to where it actually diffuses. Every time they have a hurricane that hits Florida, where do you think all that debris ends up? Padre Island. Every single time. So if they're talking about only putting it out a mile, it's gonna end up on our beaches within a month. It needs to be far enough out there so it diffuses before it actually hits South Padre Island. Because I don't know, do you have a picture of the lower end of Texas?
Lower,
Like
South Padre.
South Padre area, yes. Okay, so yeah, that's a great picture right there.
What happened there?
Outside.
All right, so right, obviously we're up here, but you see this curve that's like this? What ends up happening, everything that happens up on like the Florida, Louisiana, even in Louisiana, when hurricanes hit that area, we have houses, docks, and boats that come onto our beaches down here. So if they pipe it out, it has to be far enough out that it don't end up on our beaches. That's the other thing too, because right now too, there's a turtle program with the Padre Island National Seashore that we've been battling to help save. I don't know if y'all know what's going on with that. That's another big issue. If they don't pipe it out far enough, it's gonna kill the area and we're gonna lose all of our sea turtles that they've been fighting for the last, 30 to 40 years? So it's not just dealing with the inside of the bay. If they don't pipe it far enough out here, it's gonna kill the entire area down here because it's gonna continue to, there's another picture. Can you pull that up where it looks like a pipe area and it's starting to bleed out that way? Is that another desal deal? But that's the best way I can show y'all.
Is that in South Padre as well?
No, it was part of y'all's deal.
Yeah.
It'll kill the whooping cranes because it'll kill the crabs.
Yes, crabs, the shrimp,
People
the
don't come in
fish.
to look at they come here, you know, this is a birdie area, they don't
Not
come here to look.
the other
at
one that has a
refinery.
pipe coming out and that one, see? If they pipe it out like that, imagine this way. They pipe it out, it's gonna come straight to our beaches. So it's gotta be far enough that it's not gonna end up on our beaches kind of deal, because again, that's a ton of brine going out, and if it's not deep enough, we're gonna be screwed. So it's not just here, it's the island, it's the surrounding cities, towns, it's gonna affect everybody, and then if they put two, guess
But it's
everybody-
not just brine, it's forever chemicals, mercury.
Okay,
all that
so
stuff.
let me hit something on that too. I have a buddy that works in the ship channel. The way that Drew Molly, I believe it is Drew Molly, that has the paperwork set up for when they have a chemical spill, that they only have to report a certain amount to keep the refineries or the industry from getting fined so much. Obviously, it's them, pencil whipping it, oh, only three gallons of, forever chemicals were spilled, so they only get fined, you know, $5,000 or whatever. The last one that got reported a week later was about 3 to 4 foot thick on the top of it, and they just put buoys around it until they were finally able to go clean it up. Or I haven't talked to them since then, but they only reported in just what got over the buoy, not what was actually in the buoys and got spilled. So if they are intending, again, if they're intending to pull that in, and it's only what, 900 foot from the intake and the discharge that they're doing for the Inner Harbor one?
Yeah, it's like 1,800 feet.
No, have they changed that? Cause originally it was like 900 foot.
In the permit, it's about, I think, 1,800.
Either way, that's still, it's still not enough, especially, here's the deal, this is what's really funny. If they're gonna do the intake here, and then they're gonna put the discharge over here, it has nowhere to go.
Right.
That's
Sure, it goes right
that's
to
the
the
back,
intake.
yeah, that's the back end of a closed,
Right.
you know, channel, that's it, you know. I'm
It's like barbecuing in your house.
Yes, yeah, so, either way, it's gonna, I don't know the whole scientific portion of it separating and all of that, it's gonna do that for a certain amount, but it's gonna continue to build and build and build and build, and soon it's gonna just be sucking the same water that it's putting out. And we have basically got a huge paperweight on the inside of our channel that we're paying for the next 30 years.
Albert, as an avid fisherman for decades now, like, have you seen a decrease in like the fish population or the quality and quantity of fish that y'all have been catching as well? Like, is it impacting?
So, a lot of things have changed, because the Gulf Stream changed up. Since we don't know a lot, we haven't had any brown tide or red tide in the recent years because the Gulf Stream changed up. We've actually seen a lot better fishing, come into play on it, because now we don't have so many dead, fish kills, you know, because it's not just fish, whooping cranes and all of that try to eat those fish and stuff like that, and they get poisoned and they end up dying as well. Now, if this goes into effect, it will impact the area quickly, because in those areas and those estuaries and stuff like that, a lot of big fish, sharks mainly, come into our bays and they drop their pups because they need areas for the pups to hide where they're big enough before they go offshore. So in our bays of Corpus Christi, we got big shark. You don't see them, you don't hear about them, because when they're coming in to drop pup, and they stay a little bit and then they're back offshore. We catch a lot of our big shark off, you know, the Padre Island, all piers, jetties and stuff like that. But what ends up happening, once you start polluting all of these areas, we're gonna lose our whole fishing industry, because drum also come into the bays to drop, redfish do the same, and then right now, obviously, they have the coastal fisheries programs for like redfish and speckled trout, because of game fish, they can hatch them and stuff like that, but if that water, the salinity is too high, it's gonna defeat the purpose. They won't be able to drop them, because then they will die because the salinity is too high. So it basically, we use salt in our water to brine our baits, to make them harder, to make them sturdier, like beef jerky, so they stay on the hook longer. We're basically gonna be cooking the whole bay at one time. So it's gonna, soon, we won't have our shrimp boats down there, you ain't gonna have no restaurants down there, the hotels will follow suit, and me as a fisherman, I'm in the fishing industry, that is my bread and butter. If we don't have fish to catch, I ain't gonna have a business. So again, you see people's posts, share them, comment on them. Whether you agree with them or not, this is the one thing we gotta save our city. We gotta get the truth out there of why we're paying for it instead of industry. And again, too, like, whew, I'll be here all night. But y'all got any more questions for me? Okay, good.
Do we have any questions for City Council?
So many questions for City Council.
Hey, Elida, do you have a question? How do I see this video?
Team Hard Life on YouTube.
Team Hard. Thank you, sir.
Oh, then, yeah, my YouTube channel is called Team Hard Life. And normally too, I bring Rachel Caballero on there pretty much every other week. And she kind of keeps us up to speed, and definitely I'd like to bring you on. Whenever y'all find info, let me know. I'll bring y'all on there so we can reach a lot of people. I'm at 208,000 subscribers right now. So I've got people in all those areas, like Carlsbad, California.
Yeah.
They've been sending me input. People from South Australia, they've been sending me input.
That's awesome.
And so again, too, all of them are in the same page. They don't like the desal plants in their area, even if they're in better locations and stuff like that. They've already seen how many times they're shut down, how many times they're destroying stuff. And actually, one of the desal plants that's up on the East Coast, I forget where he said it was at, but they have actually they're testing right now because the brine is creating some type of foam on the water surface that is actually toxic, and people have actually been hospitalized because of it. So they sent me that info. It's in my email, but we were talking about it for several weeks on there, and I'm trying to get more info because they just started the testing, but they are already basically pointing fingers. It's from the brine that's being released in their area, and it's creating that toxic foam on the water's edge.
Yeah, text me that info, and that way we could share it with everybody else too. Or once you get that, and we'll direct people to the YouTube channel as well.
Roger that.
Yeah. So we have, we're coming up, we're a little past time here. We have questions for our city council members. As we had shared earlier, the biggest questions that they had, their biggest concerns were the price of the desal facility. They wanted to keep it to the $757 million, price tag, and then the Farfield modeling. If Farfield showed that it was not going to impact the bay, then they were going to sign, seal, deliver support like this plan. So we have questions for our city council members. One, how much water is really needed for this area? For us to provide, water for our communities and also for the industry, not including potential projects. What projects are we expecting that we need water for? How much residential population growth are you expecting? They keep on saying we need water so that we could grow this area. You have all these developers saying we're going to create this new subdivision for all the people who are moving to Corpus. Like, where are they? How much are our water bills going to go up? And from ongoing and future water projects, we already saw water bills are going up next year. Water bills have consistently been going up for the past few years, and there's no sight, it is no end in sight because they are charging us. Industry is fighting their fees, so who can they get to pay for that? Who's not gonna say, hey, well, what can we really do? The citizens. And we are obligated to pay for this because Corpus Christi is our water provider. Right, so why is there a delay in rescinding the voluntary surcharge for large volume water users? I don't know how many of y'all here, aware of this, but back in 2018 is when they first proposed this voluntary surcharge, and it was 25 cents for every 1,000 gallons of water that large volume water users used to offset the cost of desalination or new alternative sources of water.
So 25 cents for every 1,000 gallons. That's ridiculous. So they voted for this in 2018. We're now in 2025. It's probably collected like less than 30 million, maybe $30 million. How much is that price tag for the desal project? 757 million minimum. It's actually 1.2, 1.7, 1.8 billion. But $30 million is going to help us pay for that desal project. While they continue to use as much water as they want, while everybody is under drought restrictions, because they paid 25 cents, well now 31 cents because of inflation. Yeah, and the city manager can rescind that. The city council can also have him rescind that. And why, we're in this water crisis. Why have they not moved towards that? And also, an FYI on this, they get 5 years notice. So if they were to rescind it today, industry is still able to take advantage of this for 5 years. And would you support a moratorium for new industry? We can't provide water for the people and industries that we have right now. Why would we bring on more users? Councilman Hernandez, who was at our last town hall, shared it's because they need them to help offset the cost of infrastructure. If we don't have new industry to help pay for it, it's gonna make everybody else's bills higher, but they're the ones using it. I was like, well, we're gonna also commit to providing them with water, right? And he was like, yeah. So how is this really gonna help us in the long run? It's not. So these are just some of the questions, some of the top questions. And if y'all have more, please feel free to ask them, because these are our elected officials. Industries they have these industrial district agreements, which says that they're not located within the Corpus Christi city limits. And that benefits them because they're not paying city taxes. They don't have to follow city ordinances. They're not, under all of these restrictions that residents would be under. So then why is it up to the city of Corpus Christi to provide them with water if they don't even want to be Corpus Christi residents? And they also passed it, they went from a 10-year IDA to a 15-year IDA, which is absolutely insane.
And what is an IDA?
An industrial district agreement. So that's what they use to say, we're not in this Corpus Christi city limits. We're county residents. So that's why they also fight, their water rates and all that, because they're not within the city limits. So then, Peter's enemy says, well, it's cheaper for us because now we don't have to pay for the roads. They're driving outside of the area. They're not just contained in their little circle, their little, city outside of the city limit area. They're using our roads. Their trucks are using the roads. They're tearing up the roads. They're using water. We're having to, pay for this water pipelines and infrastructure. So, and their pollution doesn't also stay in that little area. It gets spewed out all over the place. So we went through a lot of Q&A during the presentation, but are there any additional questions that y'all may have?
I got one. You hit on it earlier that they're gonna have to be using trucks to truck the brine out of there and sludge or what have you.
All the organic waste.
Is that $1.5 billion price tag include those truck fees, driver, gas, fuel, and all of that? So what they need to be doing is adding that cost on top of this, because we're going to be paying for that as well.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Energy cost, all that.
Yes, exactly. So they are not giving us a fair number at the end of the day.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
And Pam had mentioned it earlier, they're going to have these liners at the landfills, all of that seepage, all of that, it's going to be.
And hazmat dumping is a lot more expensive than regular dumping too.
Mm-hmm.
So first, CC Water about the operating costs. After the thing's built, that it's an operation, what's the cost every year to operate it? And they hesitated for a long time to give me an answer. They eventually said $40 million a year. I think, what is CC Water's budget right now? I think
150.
150, right.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a substantial increase. Environmental groups estimated it's going to cost twice that to operate it, or be more than $80 million. I know we cover things like the sludge trucks, but also the huge energy cost for this as well.
Debt service. Debt
Yeah.
service is like a 60, 100
Right.
a year.
It's not a grant, it's a loan.
Yeah.
It's a loan interest loan, so we have to pay that back. So, yeah, good. Relax there. What are some other questions that y'all may have for city council? Like, why? Is this their legacy? Is this what they want to be known for? This project? I mean, we had the previous version of the council. They went to go tour Tampa Bay and they were like, it was such a great project. It was so, nice. And then we find out what, it had been offline for a year and a half.
Right.
So then when they went to go tour it, it wasn't even working.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was a great project.
Why are they so obsessed with the Inner Harbor location? Why not some other location, right?
Oh, they're looking up Barney Davis too, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, how many do we freaking need now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Outside of pressuring city council, is there anything else we can do?
Right now, it's all on city council. Yeah, the mayor and, even the city manager, he could make some recommendations and do some things, but city council is the one that has that final say-so right now. They're feeling the pressure from the governor. We have elections coming up. That's another big thing. And Betty,
I was gonna say new faces, pressuring the city council helps a
Yes.
ton. Because a lot of us already have put our faces in their faces. New faces is the way to go. New faces, new input.
yes.
Yeah, so please reach out to them.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Also, something else you can do is just talk to people about this, because not a lot of people really have time to pay attention, and so, people, your cashiers, your bank tellers, your friends, your enemies, like, everyone,
Yes.
Howard said, like, even if you don't agree with someone, like, this will impact everyone.
yeah, I was like at the grocery store with one of the Hillcrest residents, and the cashier was like, I saw y'all on TV. So, it's always a good conversation starter. Holidays are coming up, you have family visiting the area, a good time to, talk about this issue. Because, the reality is people come to Corpus Christi, they love our bays, they love our water, they love the community here. It's something that San Antonio doesn't have. It's something that Austin doesn't have. This is a precious resource for many of us. And so the decisions don't just impact us here locally, it impacts us throughout the entire state. But they're looking at DSAL as this vehicle for economic development when it's not development. We're regressing and we're turning this area into an industrial zone, which, if you look at, unfortunately, we have examples. We have Texas City, we have Baytown, we have Port Arthur, we have so many areas where, so many models, where they have been overly saturated by industry and they're not thriving. People that live there are people who can't afford to move away, or they're forced to live there because their family members work there, but they're not thriving. And, people will say, well, if we have industry curtail their operations, it's gonna kill this area. This area is already dying,
When they run out of water anyway, they're gonna leave.
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
I got one more question.
And it might be for you, or I had a question, because I know I've seen a lot from C and CCA.
They just started getting involved.
Yes,
From-
and I know they're saying their take on it is they're not necessarily against it, but they want a foolproof pen that it's not going to impact, which is basically their way of kind of skirting.
Yes.
We're not against it, but if you don't guarantee it's 100%,
No.
and I never see them here, but I also know there's a lot of hard hitters in CCA,
Yeah.
because a lot of them
But-
work
but-
in industry too.
Exactly. A lot of them work with industry.
Flint Hills,
And, yeah,
Oklahoma.
so they're basically, they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. Even with Texas Parks and Wildlife, we try to get them involved, and they said, well, we don't have no strength. I said, well, how do you have strength to come to my house on a whim to come collect a fish that I may have poached? But you're gonna have this industry come in and be permitted to dump 3 million gallons of sludge and kill the bay? Oh, but that's okay. So,
Dare take that fish.
yeah, no, we reach out, but again, to getting involved, showing up to the city council meetings, and even if you can't, I've been telling my YouTube subscribers, and she nailed it, even though you don't live here, still sign up for public comment on Tuesdays, because normally when I go up there, I let them know, hey, there's a lot of people that you're calling their names, they are letting you know they are paying attention. They cannot take time off from work, because we all work. They can't take the time off to be here, but you just called their name, so they are paying attention. So even if you can't make the meetings, at least sign up for it. It takes like 20 seconds. So get off of Facebook for that. Sign up for the online commenting, and you can actually put your comment there that you're against desal for whatever reasons, but they have to call your name every single day for the public comment, and that's why some of them have gone till like 11 at night.
1
So,
o'clock.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah.
We have that here about, so when I was looking at your presentation, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna put on my teacher hat. Some people don't know what salinity is. Some people don't know what DO is. So just translating some of this, and, you know, I mean, I can help read it, but it's the graphic design of it, because I know there's a lot of propaganda already saying that. And
Yeah.
the presentations that you have are great, but then just changing some of those words. So the everyday person, and I always tell my students that it's not that people are stupid or not educated, it's that they're not scientists, so they're not gonna understand far field, they're not gonna understand any of those words. And so that's how others get to them, think, okay, well, because they don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I understand it because I obviously know those words, but
Yeah.
saying salinity, what it's basically, it's salt, a lot of salt in the water.
What it kind of gets us to these roundtable discussions, this is really helpful, thank you, sorry, because, you know, it's like what works, what kind of messaging works for our community. We wanted to have like more time to devote to this, like, you know, so what messaging, what is it that people need to know? What will get them more, you know, concerned about this problem? How are ways to elevate communication using social media, billboards, flyers, mailers, like, you know, things like that. Having right now, like there's political campaigns, like having the same thing for desalination, like having canvassing teams, having street teams to go and inform folks. You know, we have a lot of college students who love coming to the island university, but then you see all these flares and things, and it's just like, is it really as attractive as people thought it was going to be? And then you can't use as much water. You can't even go out on a slip and slide and, you know, have fun like when it's really hot outside. You know, things like that. Like, so what works, what kind of communication and media can be used? Also, who are, like, power mapping. We always look at, like, who are our allies, who are our targets, you know, who can we connect with, how can we get more people involved? And you're doing a great job of that, Albert, like, you know, by getting folks who live, like, in Australia and California and all these places that are impacted by desal. Outreach strategies and tactics, like, what are ways that we can reach and educate other audiences? People work, you know, they don't have the time, the energy, you know, they feel intimidated by the problem. It's just like, well, I'm just concerned about my water bill and what comes out of the tap. You know, they don't have time to go to the city council meetings because they're, even with the 5 o'clock time, you know, public comment time, that's not convenient for a lot of people. So it's just like, you know, what are ways that we can reach out to some folks, and then also what are some concrete next steps that we can take for, you know, things like this. So 2026, like I said, is a new year. This is still an ongoing project, but it's a way for us to like develop a plan on how we can get more people informed, involved, and, you know, keep fighting back against this, because we thought we had a small win, like a longer win than we thought. It was a small pause, but, you know, even during this time, like, we knew that it was not going to go away. So thanks to like our canvassing team that we have had out there collecting permits, we collected almost 4,000 signatures of people saying, hey, pull the permit, pull the Inner Harbor / Hillcrest desalination plant permit. And we were prepared. So we had industry go and give like 500 comments. We had almost 4,000 people. So, you know, Gold Coast Growth Ventures has like 600 people working there. And we had more than that. So definitely, you know, these are all things that we could do. We have some important dates. There's going to be a Corpus Christi City Council meeting on December 9th. We have, you know, we talked about energy costs. There's going to be an LNG pipeline for Cheniere LNG. They're going through this stage 4 expansion project. It's a scoping session, so you'll have the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and Cheniere there collecting public comments on this concern, because as we said, this is an energy hog. And it's going to take a lot of electricity to power this plant. And when you have Cheniere exporting every, LNG taker of gas that they can, so that we could power up other countries, it's making our costs increase here. Plus, it also requires a lot of water. They use water for fracking. They use water for, you know, operations. They use water for their cooling towers. So we are using our resources so that these facilities can make a lot of money. Then we have our last Water for People call for the year.
on Monday, December 15th at 6 p.m. And that information will get emailed to y'all as long as we had you sign in. So we currently have a petition that is active, to the city council. We have some postcards if y'all want to take those to send a message to your elected officials. There's also their addresses there. We want to have like small group outreach, public comment trainings and meetings because it's so an intimidating process. And just like have like little things like this at your home. Like holidays are a good time to talk about this issue. People are gonna be like, hey, how come, what? Like your water bill? Like you're concerned about me using how much water? Well, you have visitors and it's like, hey, because we're under drought restrictions. My water bills, I could get fined if I use this much water, or my water bill's gonna go up this much. These are all like really valid points to make with folks. So power comes in two forms: organized money and organized people. Industry is able to drop all the money that they want, but we have a lot more people, as we showed. So, yeah, I think that is pretty much it.
One more question. Is there a way to figure out, because somebody brought it up earlier about why do they keep bringing it to the table? Like, why are they so dead set on that area? I'm willing to bet there's some kind of money trail that goes back to the city council members that are in there. Because, I mean, why, like, they are so adamant about getting it done in that one area.
Yeah, they are.
Even though it's been shut down, they're arguing and they're bickering against each other. That's not a team right there. So there's got to be some kind of backdoor, under the table action that's happening. And if anybody knows somebody that can do some due diligence on it, I mean, I'd love to do it, but I mean, I'm running 4 businesses right now, so it's kind of hard,
They say it like there's location there. They're already, they think like Hillcrest, there's not a lot of residents that still live there, so they feel that they're vulnerable. Keep on like, bringing this up, you're going to tire them out. Discrimination, like historic discrimination against, the historic Black and Brown community in the area. They just don't respect the residents that live there who are concerned about this project. They think if we keep bringing this up, people are going to move out, and guess what? That is like some prime property in Corpus Christi.
Yeah, for industry.
So that is why they keep on bringing it up, because they want that community. And so
I know some of them own that property already. They're connected to owning that property already. So the money's coming back, so that's why I'm saying, it's not just the oppression and everything else they're doing.
Yeah.
It's the money that's changing hands. That's the big culprit right there too.
They have a lot of plans for the land that's located, and if y'all don't know where this project is, we're really close to it. If you keep going down this curve, you'll get to the Hillcrest neighborhood. You could drive by there, and they're already laying out pipeline. Before this project was fully approved, they were already laying out new water lines in that area because they were expecting in some way, shape, or form that they're gonna have this project off the ground. But once again, it goes back to who benefits from this water the most. They only added residents to the permit so that they found out, well, we can't have the community pay for it if it's not gonna benefit them. So now we gotta say it's gonna benefit them so that we could get them to pay for it.
But there is a little bit of corruption involved because like that, John Barton, the director of the Noise River Authority, like I spoke with him in the field. He's not a very pleasant person. And then everything he was telling them, he's pressuring them, and he's manipulating the narrative, to get them to go ahead and rush into this. And then we see right after, like, because they're asking him, well, you're not going to sell to our customers. And he's like, well, not unless they come to me. And I just wonder, how do they pick and choose, like, what pipeline, or who's putting the water where? Because it's all coming from basically, certain sources, but at the same time, they're saying that it's not for profit, whenever water is a natural resource. So basically all profit, And then the fact that, right after that, he was involved in a scandal of some signatures that got on water samples, and I mean, that just shows that we can't trust him, and they want to put this, he was charged with something, this whole thing, and then the whole thing with them bringing Elon Musk companies boring in here, whenever they've just been getting fined, in Las Vegas for dumping wastewater, dumping toxic drilling fluids into their sewer system and stuff, which they have the money to pay the fines, they're like, they don't really care. So what are they gonna do with our systems, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, that, you nailed it there, like, you know, they have the money to pay for the fines. Albert, I think you brought up the oil spill that happened in 2023?
No, this is a few months ago.
Okay.
This is a few months ago that they were upset they didn't get notified immediately. It was a week later that they got notified.
Okay, well, there was an oil spill that happened, you know, off of like Flint Hills property in Ingleside. And there was, you know, a significant amount of barrels that got released, that leaked into the ship channel. And
Christmas Eve.
yeah, it was Christmas Eve. And so the city could have fined Flint Hills $1,500, but they said, well, we're not gonna fine them. $1,500 for, I think it was like 2,800 barrels. So of gas, and there's 42 gallons of oil in each barrel. So it was thousands of gallons of crude oil that got, you know, spilled into the bay. And the city could have fined them $1,500. They barely paid anything from TCEQ because they cleaned it up. It's cheaper for them to pay the fines than it is to actually fix the problem or to mitigate them.
I used to work offshore sandblasting and painting, and they were telling me to sandblast a pipe. So I was halfway down, and it struck a little pinhole, and oil started shooting out. So I had to shut down, come up, and then I had to go back down and put a clamp over it and stuff like that. And maybe 2 gallons of oil spilled out into the Gulf. They got fined $2.5 million.
That sounds appropriate.
So if they're not getting fined like that, they're going to continue making these mistakes because it's easier for them to just pay the fine. If they started making these fines more dramatic, they're going to start cleaning up their act. Because like they were on that rig, they were like, hey, hurry up, we got to close the coast. Like everything shut down to fix a little pinhole. And it probably took me like 5 to 10 minutes to get up there, get back down, and do all of that. So I mean, it was fast work. We were covered in oil. We had to do all kinds of cleaning on the rig. But if that was for 2 gallons, they estimated 2 gallons because of slick and all of this. But yeah, it was crazy. So if they're not getting that, there's some serious.
Yeah.
But that was federal water. Is that why it was so high?
I don't know why it was so high. All I know is I heard because at the time I was the foreman for it, but I didn't have no guys trained on the spider, so I had to get down and do the work myself. And so when I came up, I was talking to the rig operator. He was the main guy for the oil field representative. He goes, dude, they're gonna find them. You know, it was an astronomical amount. I was like, God, he's like, and I looked at him, I think he was gonna fire me, and, you know, or get me ran off. He goes, I'm the one that told you to do it, bro. They can't be mad at you. Like, okay, cool. Like that is crazy. That scared the crap out of me. So, yeah.
You know, and that's the thing. Like, they already write these fines into their budgets. So it's not like they're losing anything. And then what do? They'll go to the city and say, hey, here's $100,000 for homeless, you know, initiatives. Here's $1,000 for a park cleanup. Like, you know, it's all write-offs for them.
Yeah.
So there's, you know, until they feel the pinch by not being able to use the water or getting fined significantly, you know, then that's when those changes can be made. And once again, TCEQ, the governor appoints those commissioners to TCEQ. He appoints a public utility commission. Like, when people say, well, it doesn't really matter if I go vote, it doesn't matter, these elections don't change anything, research these things. We have that opportunity, or at least hold them accountable, because at the end of the day, we have the power.
So to also hit on that, did you see the paperwork where the city of Corpus Christi was fined $125,000 multiple times, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, from the Texas Railroad Commission or something like that, because of things that they didn't get fixed, and they had been warned, and so this is part of the monies that we're getting fined as a city, because the city manager failed to get the job done or whatever.
But there was like EPA, also the Railroad Commission, for those who don't know, oversees the oil and gas industry, not railroads in Texas. And then also, you know, back in 2016 when we had a significant water boil for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, it was there was what was it? A backflow preventer that went out, or it wasn't even really installed at one of these industries. They finally got some of that fine money back.
And rather than like help the citizens who had to go buy bottled water, who couldn't use their, you know, their water, like they went and they're like, hey, let's give some of the money back to these industries and educate them on backflow prevention. We'll also help them install some of these at their facilities. And it was just like, that could have been used by the public. So, yeah. So once again, want to remind y'all upcoming meetings. If you know, we can discuss this more at our Water for People call on December 15th. That way we can plan, you know, that messaging and how we're going to tackle 2026. It's a new year, a new opportunity, more people to get involved. Same problem. So we know like they're going to be actively trying to influence our city council members. But once again, y'all are their constituents, not Gulf Coast Growth Ventures, not Flint Hills Resources, not, you know, Steel Dynamics. It's everybody sitting here.
And we outnumber them, so we can definitely pull weight at the polls, guys. Another thing too, just to kind of hit on it, that's why I bring Rachel Caballero on, because getting involved with city council, their verbiage, they're speaking Japanese. I don't understand it, but she breaks it down for us. So that's why I like to involve people and bring them on my channel, because I sit there and I'm like, okay, dummy it down for me and everybody else that don't understand the verbiage. So that's why if y'all want to check out my channel, that's what we do. We break it down so everyday individuals can understand the verbiage. And I've even had him on come in and talk about desal and all of that as well. And I keep it real like that, so that way it's easy and we're not rushed on time and stuff like that. So.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, and that's what it takes. I mean, don't feel like you need to know everything, but it's just like, it's bad, you know, and this is why. Like, you know, cost, energy use, like we're still, you know, we haven't fully recovered from the winter storm we had in 2021. Our grid is still vulnerable, and as we put more data centers online, more large energy users, like we're going to be left in the cold, literally. You know,
weren't we going through rolling blackouts several years ago as well?
Yeah, yeah. You know, even we weren't going through blackouts during the summer, but they were still telling us like, hey, try to lower, you know, raise your thermostats, lower your thermostat, do this, use your windows, use all that, and it's just like there's people dying because we have 100+ degree weather. You know, like what are we doing for our communities? And then it's just like, well, I don't know, we could afford a cooling center. That's going to cost us. It's not in our budget. And it's just like.
But they gave themselves raises.
Yeah.
But they gave themselves raises.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for, you know, coming out, for sharing all this information with us too, all the questions. You know, it's really helpful for us to like be able to, you know, come back and like the way we present and give information to our communities. And it's, you know, we can't defeat this without having one another involved,
Yes,
right?
most definitely.
You know,
Thank you for getting it together.
Yeah. And there's plenty of food, so feel free to take some food, some drinks, some chips, and we will see y'all in the new year.
All right.